Hi, this video is an introduction to the DECIDE model, which is a step-by-step process for analyzing your own critical thinking. Essentially, the DECIDE model breaks down problem solving into smaller pieces, which helps to highlight the assumptions that influence our choices. The DECIDE model can be used to examine many kinds of issues, problems, or decisions, from where to have dinner, which major is right for you, or which strategy recommendation a firm should choose in order to grow their business. You probably went through a decision-making process in choosing to watch this video, and you could have used the DECIDE model to help you decide whether or not you wanted to watch it right now. The first step in the DECIDE model is a really important one, defining the problem. This is often a step that seems clear-cut in the beginning when you start the process, because you know that the DECIDE model is a tool that can help with decision-making. But I've often found that one of the reasons I'm grappling with a choice that I turn to the DECIDE model to help with is because I've defined the problem differently than the situation I'm trying to solve. Also, the direction of decision-making is so influenced by this step that it really helps to write down the problem as you've defined it. The second step is establishing criteria for the solution. This step provides clarity for understanding the many assumptions that we use to form our judgments about the right solution to our problems or issues, which can be valuable because we don't often stop to examine what we want from a solution before we pick it. Doing this step so early in the process, although you'll likely come back to steps 1 and 2 a few times throughout, saves a lot of time in the brainstorming phase. It's also helpful here to determine how important each criterion is to you, because some will matter more than others. The third step is to collect and analyze data. This helps to narrow down the possible solutions and provides a clear foundation for understanding what's out there for you to implement. Again, this is a step many people take for granted in decision making, even if they spend a long time gathering data, but the quality of the data matters, as does the amount of it. The best solutions will come from getting valid data from trustworthy sources for the problem you're trying to solve. In other words, if you're trying to decide where to live next semester, asking your uncle in New Hampshire which apartment communities in Greenville have a pool isn't likely to produce an answer you can use. But you could find out by talking to friends who live in Greenville or going to a website that filters apartment communities by amenities. The fourth step is identifying possible solutions. This step can involve some creative thinking, as well as filtering through many possible options. A good tip is to remember that your assumptions are guiding you by changing what you identify as a possible solution. So you might never think of a particular option because it seems so absurd. This is one of the benefits of the DECIDE model. This stage encourages you to slow down to brainstorm possible solutions that you might have ignored otherwise. The fifth step is defending and implementing the options. In this step, you line up the solutions you identified in the previous steps and examine how well each meets the criteria you established in the second step. This is also where your data from the third step come in handy, because it's difficult to know how well it meets your criteria without clear information. The sixth step involves evaluating the solution, which can happen at many points. Immediately after identifying the solution, you will likely evaluate it by measuring it against what you thought the solution was going to be. Examining that match or mismatch can tell you a lot about the assumptions you're making during the process and encourage you to call those out to know how happy you'll be with whichever solution you choose in the end. Likewise, you will probably evaluate your solution after you've implemented it, which can help you know whether you want to proceed. So it's helpful to consider the markers of your evaluation here too. So let's try an example. Let's say that you're trying to decide on dinner plans. You can start by defining the problem, which might seem simple at first. What do I want for dinner? But the truth is that what you want for dinner is also nested in what you want to do for dinner, which is also nested inside which foods you want to eat. So a clearer definition of the problem might be, what do I want to cook for dinner? Or where do I want to go for dinner? Or maybe you can even choose to use the DECIDE model to tackle the higher level question of what do I want to do for dinner, in which you narrow down whether you want to cook, go to a restaurant, or order takeout, in addition to the other possible options for what to do for dinner, followed by another DECIDE model for what food you want to eat after you know what you want to do. So we'll define the problem for the purposes of this example as, what do I want to do for dinner? Next, I'll establish my criteria. There are a few big and obvious ones to start with, and I find that these are pretty good ways to start to think about the important criteria for almost any decision. What are the time, money, convenience, and skill-related needs for solving the problem? Those usually indicate what you'll judge your solutions by. In this example, that means, do I like to cook? Do I know how to cook? Do I already have all the ingredients and tools I need? Is the restaurant or the grocery store near to or on my way home, or will I have to go out of my way? Do I want to clean up after, or do I want someone else to handle that? How much money do I have to spend in order to eat out, get delivery, or cook? You can see in this example too, that if I don't walk through the decide model, many of these questions influence the answer without me thinking about it. If I don't like or know how to cook, then intuitively, I'm probably not including eating at home as one of my possible solutions. But if I walk through the decide model, I might realize that one solution is to warm up my leftovers from last night's takeout, which means that eating at home is a possible solution. I still might not choose it, but examining my criteria leaves it on the table, so to speak. Put simply, most nights, I'd establish the following criteria for determining a solution. How much quality time will I get to spend with my family? How much enjoyment will I get out of eating this food? And how much money will it cost? So next, I'll collect and analyze my data. This will inevitably involve calling my husband to ask what we have in the house, if anything needs to be eaten sooner rather than later, and what plans we have for the evening. But it could also include going to the fridge, looking up restaurant ratings and hours, and/or scrolling social media to see what looks good in the pictures and posts from the people and businesses I follow. I'll just let you know right now that your assumptions influence this part of the process too. And the fact that I get a lot of my data about what to have for dinner from Instagram means that I often want cookies for dinner because I don't follow a lot of accounts dedicated to vegetables. But that's about me. If you lift weights or you're on a specific diet or you're allergic to some kinds of food, collecting and analyzing data might mean that you're looking up nutritional content or using an app to track calories or protein grams. That's data that you'd want to collect and include in this decide model as well. Either way, this part helps to set the stage for identifying possible solutions. Let's say that in my data collection, I discovered that my afternoon meeting was canceled, it's National Pizza Day, and I don't have any leftovers in the fridge that I want or need to eat. That means that the solutions to my issue, what do I want to do for dinner, get narrowed down to make a pizza, order a pizza, or go out for pizza. Now I'm going to defend and implement those solutions. In this case, that means lining up my options and my criteria to look at how each meets my needs for a good solution. It might also include comparing them to each other across the criteria. So in terms of how much time each solution will take me, making a pizza will provide me with the most quality amount of time with my family, whereas ordering a pizza provides me with a fair amount of time between the time that I call the order in and the time that the pizza shows up, and the time that I don't have to spend cleaning up after myself or after everything that I've messed up the kitchen to make the pizza with. Going out provides me with potentially the least amount of time because I will only be in the restaurant for a short period with my family, and then I'll head back home again. The second factor, the second criterion that I established is called something I call the yum factor. It's how much do I enjoy this meal? So I would probably enjoy a pizza that I made as a 2 versus ordering my own food as a 1 because I haven't had to do as much work to go into it. That means I'm probably going to enjoy it more. And going out then as the least amount of yum factor. In terms of cost, I might analyze the cost of making my own food as basically free because pizza is essentially ingredients that I already have at home and some cheese. And ordering is going to cost slightly more money because you pay for the convenience part of it, whereas going out is likely to cost me the most money out of my potential options. This example also tells you something important about your criteria, which is that you don't care about each equally. I personally care about the time more than the money, within reason, and how good it tastes less than the amount of quality time I'll get to spend with my family. This also shows how subjective decision-making is, because you might weigh all of these differently for yourself. When you anchor your criteria and determine how you'll score them, make sure you know the direction they go in too. When I say time, I mean how much quality time I get from the solution, not how little time I have to spend cleaning up, which would make for different scores. I did this with numbers, but you could use check marks and X's or emojis or whatever system makes sense to you. The goal is just to get an answer that indicates a composite score that lets you compare your solutions. Then you want to evaluate the solutions and consider any revisions. These results indicate that making a pizza at home is my favorite option. So I can stop there and plan to make pizza, or I can go back and gather more data to see if that changes my scores, and then make sure that each score is how I want it. So that's the DECIDE model in a nutshell. You can spend a lot of time and attention to detail with this, or you can use it more broadly just to ensure that you're working through the process systematically. You can use this for big life decisions or more specific issues that are defined by someone else, like an instructor or a partner. You might have an instructor who asks you to use this model specifically for an assignment and show details from each step. And you could use this on your own to determine the solution you want to focus on in a paper or a project. Thank you for watching this video on the DECIDE model, and we hope it helps to have this framework for quality critical thinking.